Hello all, so we've decided we would make some videos to keep us all busy over the next few weeks. I hope everybody's keeping well. We are trialling out some new software, so bear with me. It could be an absolute disaster or it could work really well, so we'll give it a go. Anyway, we're going to try making a card today using the Daffodils stamp, the tartan die, the tartan stencil. So let's see if I can make this work. Sorry, got my arm in there. So these are the products we're going to be using. The daffodil stamp, which if I can get that glare off there. There we go. It has 3 sentiments on it. It says, just a little note to say, spring has sprung and a kind word is like a spring day. We're also using our tartan die. This is roughly a 5x7 die, so a large die as well. And our tartan stencil, which is A6. And then we've also got the Honeydew Craft sticky glue, which comes in 2 different sizes. We have it in, this one's the 120ml, and we also do it in a 30ml, and the Honeydew Craft crystal clear embossing powder. So we'll get started. Pop these out of the way. So we're going to start off with an 8x8 card that I've layered up with a piece of black cardstock and some white cardstock. The black cardstock is cut to 7.5 inch square and the white is cut to 7.25 inch. I tend to work in 1/4 inches just because I like the smaller edge on there. So I've pre-cut my die. This is our tartan die, as I said, roughly 5x7. And one little tip when using the dies, because they're so large, not just with ours, with any other dies, if you pop them through your machine, if you have the larger machines, you can do this at a slight angle rather than straight on and down the middle. Slight angle and slightly off to the side, you'll get a much better cut, just so that you're aware of that. So we're using Distress Oxides today, and the 4 colours we've got are Twisted Citron, Carved Pumpkin, Mustard Seed and Squeezed Lemonade. Those of you that know me know that the oxides are my favourite go-to product as far as inks go, because they're really easy to blend. So we're going to start off by blending our die. I had a complete blank there as to what I was going to do. Did you see that? So we've just loaded the blender up with some ink, and we're just going to run that over there, about 1/3 of the die. Don't be pressing too hard when you do this, because obviously it is quite a delicate die and you don't want to rip it. So just glide over the top and pick up the extra colour. We don't want it too dark in one area and not dark enough in the others. And obviously the wider areas around the edge pick up the colour a lot stronger, so just be aware of that when you do that. Then we're going to go to some mustard seed. And the nice thing about using stencils or dies when you're blending is if you're not brilliant at it, they hide a multitude of sins. So as I say, be careful as you're doing this. You want to work with the die rather than against it. And then I'm just going to spin this round because it makes my life a bit easier. And then we're in with a squeezed lemonade. And where my fingers have been on the edge there, we've taken that off. So we're just going to blend in those colours a little bit along the edge because that's a bit harsh there. And the same here. So we will end up with something that looks along those kinds of lines. I'm then just going to take away the excess on here because I forgot to bring my water spritzer to be able to pick that ink up and make a background. So we'll just get rid of that and dry that off. And then we have our finished die. Then I'm going to take my paper trimmer and I'm going to cut this in half roughly. It doesn't have to be exact, it doesn't matter, because we're going to create an illusion that this die is bigger than it actually is. We'll put that on there and just cut it. And pop those off to one side. Then we're going to take another piece of white cardstock. This one is cut to 7 1/4 by 2 1/2, and I've forgotten my stencil tape, so we're just going to use a little bit of this tape to try and hold this down, so maybe it won't move while I do this. I'm only picking up the tiniest bit on the corners. The smallest amount you can, the better really. And then we're going to take the tartan stencil, place that over the top, and again I'm just going to use a little bit of my post-it tape to try and hold this in place while we do this, and hopefully it won't move. But if it does, it's not the end of the world. Now I'm not reloading the ink onto my blenders, I'm just going to go with the ink that's left over from when we did the dye, and I'm just going to go on here a little bit randomly. And the same with the other two colours. You don't need to worry too much about the middle because we're going to be popping a piece across there, so you won't actually see that. I'll get rid of these. And success. It just takes away that really bright white, and it will make sense when we come to do this a little bit further down the line. So get rid of the rubbish. And again, I'm a great one for, if we're layering things up, as I go, I try and layer them, because it cuts everything down. So instead of having 10 pieces on my table, I've only got 5. So we'll just get this layer ready as well. And we'll layer that on top of a piece of black, which the black is the same length and 1/4 inch bigger. So the black is 2 3/4 by 7 1/4. So that's that done. And again, I'll pop that off to one side. We're then going to stamp and emboss our, bear with me while I find my papers, our daffodil stamp. We're going to use our Onyx Black VersaFine ink. I'm going to ink that up. Lots of little light taps, and I always put my stamp down on a hard surface and ink onto it rather than take the stamp to the ink pad. Because we're using the VersaFine Onyx, it's a fast drying ink, so you need to be really quick in getting your embossing powder on there. So we'll position that on there, give it a good push. It's a large stamp, so make sure you apply the pressure on there all over. And then before I lift that and release the air to it, I'll just take the lid off that. And then we have a lovely stamped out image. And then we need to get the embossing powder on there as quickly as we can. Once the powder's on there, there's no rush. But to get that powder on there is the fast bit. And don't be tempted to give it a really good flick like you normally would. Just a light little tap will take the excess off from where you need it to be. Put that back in there. And pop that out of the way. We're then going to heat emboss. So get your heat gun hot before you take it to the cardstock, and I'm actually going to heat this from underneath because we're using crystal clear on top of the Onyx Black VersaFine. It doesn't particularly like embossing powder, so this just helps to keep the embossing powder in place rather than get blown away by the pressure of the heat gun. And heating from underneath does take a little bit of practice, so don't panic if it goes wrong the first time. It's just getting used to it. And obviously be careful, heat guns are really hot. There's something very satisfying about watching embossing powder melt, even after all these years. It's still one of my favourite things. So you should end up with a really nice shiny image. I'll try and pick up the shine on there for you. There we go. And you see how it's a shiny image. And then we're going to paint with our embossing, with our distress oxides. So we've got carved pumpkin and mustard seed, and then we're also going to use twisted citron. Just a bog standard paintbrush, nothing special. A little bit of water, and pick up some of that paint, that ink, onto the brush. Drain your excess. And then because we've heat embossed this, it helps to keep you in the lines a little bit better, and also it will resist where you've got the embossing powder, so you can just scribble all the way over the top of all of that black and it won't disappear. Whereas if you tried to do that with oxides and you hadn't heat embossed it, you would lose some of your detail. Get some more. Something very therapeutic about painting, whatever you're painting with. I know when we do our workshops, everybody goes very quiet when I start painting to show them everybody what they're doing. The whole class goes really quiet, and I don't do silence very well. And it doesn't have to be beautiful. I'm trying to make sure you don't get my head in the camera, because I don't know about anybody else, but I desperately need a haircut and I desperately need my roots doing. Well, my highlight's done already. God help me. I think I'm going to have to learn to cut my own fringe, unfortunately. Okay, I have actually gone over the line a little bit in one spot here, so I'm going to give you a little tip. It's better if you do it with clean water, but just wet that, if it's oxides, and just pick up the excess off the edge. And hopefully you'll hardly see it. So then we'll go back in and pick up some of the carved pumpkin and just go in here. And as I say, I'm no expert when it comes to colouring, but this works for me. And then we'll just pick up some green and get those leaves done. So we're hoping to make a few more of these videos as we're going along our lockdown here. So if there's anything that anybody wants to see, particularly, we've had an email through today, somebody that's made a suggestion, so we're going to hopefully be able to bring that to you in the next few weeks, or over the next few weeks. See, look, even I'm quiet, and I'm going to have to make sure I talk to you, otherwise it's a bit of a boring video, isn't it? So there we go, stamped out image. I'm then going to take just again the same blending tool that we had before, added no extra ink to it, and I'm just going to go round and just give it a little bit of colour around the edge. Try not to touch my image too much because it's probably still a little bit wet. And I'll just take away that excess paint that's on the table here, because it will spread a long way. Not so keen on the way I've done that, so we might just blend over that a little bit more. Maybe take in one of the other colours as well. That'll stand out a bit more. See, that went from being really subtle to being right in your face. But that's what happens when you try and do these things. Best laid plans, etc, etc. Again, I'll just wipe away that excess. The yellow seems to spread so far. So we'll end up with an image looking something like this. And then going to take another piece of black cardstock, which we've done again 1/4 of an inch bigger than the white piece we're working on, just to give us a nice edge. down. And with the glue again, we've got a little bit of wiggle room to get that one there straight, or as straight as you can. And we'll pop that off to one side. So we're going to go back to our card, our 8x8 card that we've mat and layered. And then we're going to take the die that we did right at the beginning, flip it over and pop some glue on the back. Take a little bit of time doing the glue. It's a bit like noughts and crosses. And you're going to do that on both pieces. Oh, that was about as straight as a die. Not. I'm trying to hurry to show you. It's not the most interesting thing in the world watching me stick glue all over this, is it? Put that to one side. So we're now going to just bring our card back in and pop our die onto our card. Roughly the same sort of border all the way around, but it doesn't have to be exact. Just a rough one on the top and one on the bottom. Again, just roughly by eye, try and line up as best you can here. But as I said to you earlier, we did a couple of little tricks so that some glue on there, sorry, so that we could hide this. So we're going to pop our band across the middle here. And that goes right to the edge of the white, not to the edge of the black or to the edge of the die. If we'd have done this, oh, I've gone in a bit quick and it's gone out of focus, I think. There we go. So if I'd have tried to do this, had the band in line with here, you would pick up if we hadn't lined these up perfectly. So by bringing it out to the black, it looks like it's all one piece. Then I've popped some foam pads on the back of our layer for our daffodil. So we'll just get those clear. And pop that on the top there. I then did a sentiment earlier, which is just a little note to say, and stamped and embossed that with the embossing powder as well, and we'll pop that on the edge there. And there we have one finished card. Now obviously I've had some layers cut out beforehand, but other than that, everything else we've done as we've gone along. So we're looking at about half an hour to 40 minutes probably to make the card from start to finish. If you watched our TV show this week, you would have also seen me do something very similar with our tulip stamp. So this is the tulips, the new spring tulip set that we brought out. It's called, the sentiments say, use your tulips to kiss winter goodbye and hello spring. And now we're going to try and show you a few more samples of some of the other design cards that our design team have made. So bear with me again. So here's another lovely one done by, I think this one was Marianne. And that's just using the daffodil stamp. I've got another one here which is using the daffodil stamp, and the purple flowers on there are our budding flourishes stamp set we have. We have got, this one is the daffodil stamp and the end circle stencil. There is also an end circle die which is the same size as the tartan die. Daffodil stamp again. This one is using the daffodils stamp set and our time for tea stamp set, which is a stack of three teacups, and I can't remember who made this one, but they've just cut the bottom one away and stamped out the daffodils a few extra times and cut those out. And then we also have this lovely one which is also Marianne's, I believe, and this one's all been fussy cut, and the sentiment is called Garden Sentiments. You can also find us on Facebook at Honeydew Crafts. We also have an Instagram, which again is Honeydew Crafts. And then you can find this video and others, once we've uploaded this video, on our YouTube channel. We also show you on there how to make some vellum flowers and things as well. Obviously we're well known for those kinds of things. And I think that's pretty much everything you need to know. Oh, there I am back again, lucky me. Yeah, so that's everything. If there is anything that anybody would like us to do some demos on, please feel free to email us at honeydewcrafts@gmail.com, or you can pop a comment on Facebook. If you go onto our website, you can join our newsletter, subscribe to that one. We don't bombard you with hundreds of emails. We just email you if there's something you need to know about us. So hope everyone is all right. Take care, and we'll be back again soon. Thanks. Bye.